Sarah had spent 7 years learning how to make herself small. Not physically. She was tall, with dark eyes that caught light the way water does, quietly, completely. But inside the Ashvale pack, she had learned to fold herself into corners, to speak only when spoken to eat last at every table. She had learned that being the Alpha King's chosen mate was not the same as being loved. It was a position, like a chair at the head of the table that everyone admired and no one ever sat in. Calder was not a cruel man. That was the thing she could never explain to anyone who asked. He was not brutal or cold or violent. He was simply indifferent, the way a mountain is indifferent to the weather that moves around it. The mountain does not hate the storm. The mountain simply does not notice it. For 7 years, Sarah had been the storm. She had cooked for his war meetings. She had stood beside him at pack ceremonies. She had memorized the names of his advisors, and their children, and their children's preferences, so that when Calder needed to remember something human about the people he led, she could lean close and whisper it. She had made herself useful, because usefulness felt, on the bad days, like love. On the bad days she believed it. On the good days she knew better. The night he called her to the war chamber, the moon was already high. She walked the long corridor to his office the way she always had, back straight, face calm, the particular expression she had developed over years that said everything is fine without requiring her mouth to open. The guards at the door stepped aside. They always had. Calder was standing at the window with his back to her when she entered. He had not lit the main lights. There was only the pale light from outside, the glow of the full moon against the stone floor. He looked like a painting of a king rather than an actual one. He turned when he heard her. He said her name once, the way you say the name of something you are about to put down. Then he told her. The words were careful and organized, the way all of Calder's communications were. He told her that the bond between them, while real, was not strategically aligned with the pack's future. He told her that the Ridgemont clan had offered an alliance through a union with their eldest daughter, a union that would double the Ashvale territory and secure the northern border for a generation. He told her he was releasing her from the mate bond, that it was a clean severance, witnessed, official, recorded. He told her this was not about her worth. She nodded. She said she understood. She thanked him. She walked herself out of the chamber, down the long corridor, past the guards who stepped aside again, out into the courtyard, where the moon sat heavy and white, in the sky above the packlands she had served for 7 years. She stood there for a long time. She waited to cry. The crying did not come. What came instead was something quieter and harder to name. The feeling of a door closing on a room you had not realized was empty. There was no grief in it. There was only the strange, hollow recognition that she had been performing something for 7 years that she had mistaken, until this moment, for feeling. She went back to her room. She packed one bag. She chose the practical things, warm clothes, money she had saved without ever deciding why, a phone charger, her identification documents. She picked up a photograph from the nightstand and looked at it for a moment, then set it face down and left it there. She was at the territory border before the sun rose. The sentinels let her through without ceremony. She had not expected ceremony. She had not hoped for it. She got into her car and drove north. Window down, radio off, the cold early morning air filling the space where noise might have been. 4 days she lived in the territory between packs. Technically neutral ground, practically nothing, just long roads through trees that did not belong to anyone, gas stations with bad coffee and fluorescent lights. Rest stops where she slept, sitting up in the driver's seat with her jacket pulled over her shoulders. She did not shift during those 4 days. She was not ready to feel her own body yet. Some grief, she had learned, works through the animal first. She wanted to let it find her there, on its own time. She was not running from it. She was simply giving it space to become what it needed to become. On the 4th evening, the engine quit. It happened on a mountain road at dusk. A narrow 2-lane pass with trees pressing close on both sides, and the sky going dark orange at the edges. The car rolled to a stop. She tried to start it twice, then accepted the situation with the particular stillness of a person who has recently survived something worse and has not yet recovered the capacity for panic about small things. She got out. She opened the hood. She propped it up and stood there in the cooling air, with the manual open on the asphalt beside her feet, reading about fuel systems by the light of her phone. She heard the truck before she saw it, heavy tires on gravel, then the slow sound of it pulling to a stop behind her. The headlights lit the back of her legs. She turned without urgency. The man who stepped out was not what she had been expecting from a mountain road at dusk. He was large, but it was not the aggressive largeness of the pack alphas she had grown up watching, men who carried their size like a weapon they were always considering whether to use. His size was different. It was structural, like something built to last rather than to intimidate. He was wearing a plain dark jacket, and he moved across the gravel toward her, without hurry, which she noticed, because hurry was the performance people gave when they wanted to seem helpful. He did not want to seem anything. He just walked over. He looked at the engine for a moment without speaking. Then he reached past her, adjusted something she could not see, asked her to try the ignition. She got in and turned the key. The engine came back immediately, steadily, like it had simply been waiting for someone to ask it correctly. She got out. "Thank you," she said. He wiped his hands on a cloth he had pulled from his jacket pocket. "You're heading north," he said. It was not quite a question. "Yes." He handed the wrench back to her. His hand was warm, even in the evening cold. When her fingers touched his, something happened that she had not expected, and had not planned for, and had no appropriate response to. The mate bond opened between them like a window in a sealed room, sudden, certain, the kind of certainty that bypasses the thinking mind entirely and speaks directly to the part of you that is older than thought. She pulled her hand back. He took one step away from her. They both stood there in the last of the orange light on a mountain road, breathing the same cold air, not saying what had just happened to both of them. "Rowan," he said finally, just his name, offered without title or expectation. "Sarah," she said. He told her there was a territory half an hour north, Thornmere, safe ground. He was going there. She was welcome to follow if she needed somewhere to stop for the night. She followed. Thornmere was not what she had expected either. The packlands were older than Ashvale. She could feel it immediately. The kind of age that settles into the soil and the trees and the stone of the buildings. A deep, unhurried steadiness beneath everything. The great hall was warm and lit without being loud. The people who moved through it did not look at her with the calculating attention she was used to, the constant social arithmetic of a pack where everyone was always measuring their position relative to everyone else. They looked at her the way you look at someone passing through in winter. Welcome. No demands attached. She stayed one night, then two, then a week. She told herself she was recovering. She told herself she was gathering the energy to move on, to find something of her own, territory, and direction, and a plan. She worked while she waited for the plan to arrive. She helped in the kitchens. She repaired things that needed repairing. She made herself useful in the only way she knew how. She understood, on some level, that this was the old training operating inside her like muscle memory. She was still paying for her space with her usefulness. She did not yet know how to simply be somewhere without earning it. Roan did not ask anything of her. That was the hardest thing to manage. He was simply present, the way Thornmere itself was present, grounded, unhurried, taking up the space he occupied without apology or performance. He came to find her in the evenings sometimes, not with any agenda, just to walk the territory together while the day went dark. They talked about small things. She noticed she was not careful in the way she was usually careful. She said what she thought rather than calculating first whether it would be received well. It frightened her slightly. She let herself be frightened. The message from Calder arrived on a Tuesday, delivered by a formal Ashvale emissary in pack colors. It was politely written. It reminded Sarah that she was Ashvale-born, that her birthright bound her to pack law even in the absence of a mate bond, and that her extended stay in foreign territory, without formal release from the pack, was technically an unauthorized departure. It requested her return by the next full moon. The politeness of the language did not hide what it was. She had lived inside Calder's particular brand of careful diplomacy for 7 years. She knew what his politeness meant. It meant, come back, or there will be consequences. Roan read the message once. He set it on the table between them. Then he looked at her and asked, in the same quiet voice he used for everything, what she wanted. Not, I will handle this. Not, you are safe here. He asked what she wanted. The question landed somewhere behind her sternum and stayed there, because no one had directed that question at her in a very long time, possibly ever, and her body had no practiced response to it. She sat down. She pressed her hands flat on the table. She looked at the window. She said she did not want to go back. He nodded, like he had already known this, and was simply waiting for her to know it too. Then he explained what he was offering her. He explained it plainly, without flourish. The Lycan mate bond between them was real. Older than pack law, older than Ashvale's claim on her birthright, older than Calder's title. If she chose the union right, Thornmere law would cover her fully. Calder's claim would be legally dissolved across all northern territories. It was ancient law, and it held. But he said it clearly. It was her choice. He would not make it for her. He was not in the habit of deciding things for other people, and he was not going to start with her. She thought about it for 2 days. She thought about the photograph she had left face down on the nightstand in Ashvale. She thought about 7 years of performing love and calling it dedication. She thought about the night she stood in the courtyard under the full moon and waited to cry, and nothing came. She thought about her wolf, which had been silent and heavy inside her for most of those 7 years, and which, since arriving in Thornmere, had begun to breathe again, slowly, the way something breathes when it is no longer afraid. She said yes on a Thursday evening, sitting in the kitchen, eating soup, as though the most significant decision of her life had arrived at the most ordinary possible moment, which, she would think later, was exactly right. The union rite happened at the edge of the tree line, under the waxing moon, 2 nights before the full moon rose. There were Thornmere elders present as witnesses, and the old trees, and the cold night air, and nothing else ceremonial, except the words themselves, which were old words in the old language, and the moment they were spoken, she felt the bond settle into place between them, the way a stone settles at the bottom of still water, completely, without drama, simply there. Roan's hands shook slightly during the rite. Hers did not. Not because she was braver, but because she had made her decision 2 days ago on a Thursday, in a warm kitchen, and had been at peace with it since. She looked at him shaking, and felt something open in her chest that was not yet a word, but was moving toward becoming one. Calder's legal challenge arrived at dawn, as she had known it would. It lasted less than an hour. Lycan union law was ancient and absolute, and recognized by every pack with a memory longer than political convenience, which in the northern territories meant all of them. There was nothing to contest. The Ashvale emissary returned north without a response, and without a verdict, because there was no verdict to deliver. The challenge had simply found no ground to stand on. Calder sent no message after that. That silence became the final thing he ever gave her. She accepted it without ceremony. In the days that followed, she began to notice things. She noticed that she ate at the table with everyone else in Thornmere, that no one had ever suggested she should not. She noticed that when she stopped making herself useful, people still spoke to her, still made space for her, still seemed glad she was there. She noticed that her wolf ran in the mornings now, long runs through the highland trees, and did not look back. One evening she found a photograph of herself on the wall of the great hall. She had not known anyone had taken it. It was from the night of the rite, and she was standing at the tree line, not looking at the camera, looking at Roan. Whatever was on her face in that photograph was real. She could tell the difference now, because she had seen 7 years of what it looked like when it was not. She left the photograph on the wall. She went to find Roan. The hall was warm. The moon was between phases, neither full nor new, simply itself in the sky, doing what it had always done. She had nowhere to be but here, and here, for the first time in longer than she could properly measure, was enough.